Enter Judas 1 says, I feel they rushed Anduin's story as well as the Maw raid with confronting Sylvanas, so I feel they're setting up to wrap up the story 9.2. That's where I actually see they have less narrative ground to cover than they did in BFA, but they're doing a BFA.
Yeah.
Whereas BFA was like, faction war, oh, quickly, get the faction war under the rug, because now it's time for Ny'alotha. You know, whereas here, I think they have less ground to cover and fewer characters to do justice to.
Yeah.
Just to finish off this current little bit. And I think that I do not think that they, in terms of the things that have happened in the time span, have rushed Anduin or Sylvanas' story. But they have given us those cinematics as a little, you know, little treat for completing some Torghast. And I think that has meant that a bunch of people have, say in chat, did you see those cinematics in game? Or did you see those cinematics on Wowhead? Or, you know, on my reaction video, Tally's reaction video, a streamer? I think most people didn't see him in game. So they did not experience them in context. And even if they did experience them in context, we didn't spend any time with any of those characters anyway in the actual regular gameplay experience of Shadowlands. Because it feels like what our characters do is Shadowlands, the side quest, while the real story happens in a bunch of cinematics. Which, okay, there's fireworks outside now.
Yeah, there's a lot of them too.
Yeah, which, basically means that the core bits all are there and make sense. I think there's a bunch of interesting elements, actually. I really enjoyed sort of geeking out in this lore. But I think for a lot of people, it would have been nice if Sylvanas was seen more. I mean, I got to see a tiny bit of her through the Night Fae campaign, but I still don't feel like I have a good connection with Sylvanas as the villain, and I have zero connection with the Jailer as a villain, because all I know is that he's got a funny smile. There's something about the definition of his nipples that's spooky to me, with how he looks in-game. And I know he's bad, because everyone's told me he's bad and he wants to eat the planet I live on, but I just don't know much about him as a character. And like, he's set up as a mystery, but I mean, characters are what humans identify with, and it's impossible to identify with the Jailer or Sylvanas because of the rushing. I'll spend time with them. It's like they learned all the wrong lessons from... You know, I never felt that Arthas appeared as a cartoon villain going, yeah,
No.
hello this week, I'll see you in the next episode. I didn't really feel like that.
Not at all.
Much.
Not at all. It was like, especially when he was in Icecrown, it was like he was there everywhere you went because you were in his domain.
Yeah, you're in his house.
That was it. You're in Northrend. He's been chilling there for 5 years. He owns everybody who's there. If he's going to show up and be like, I'm watching you, don't be at it. You're like, yeah, of course. Like, that's entirely natural. And I think the fact that it's even like vaguely comparable to a cartoon villain is just completely misunderstanding why people might have liked Arthas in the first place, is because he very clearly wasn't. Maybe if you're looking at it purely as a timing thing, where it felt kind of episodic. It wasn't episodic. It was at the middle to end of your journey in a zone, where you're like, okay, I'll start to solve like we got used to doing as characters. We're like, all right, we've shown up here. You go into the quest hub, you're like, right, what's bothering you all? Okay, back in 20 minutes, I'll sort it all out. Come back next. All right, what's the actual deep problem here? Okay, deep problem, let's go solve it. And you're like, Arthas, you were behind it the whole time. We knew that. We've taken this bit from you. We're coming for you next. And I think that just worked.
So, I feel like there was a big circle jerk at Blaze at how cool the Covenants were.
Yep.
That players have no way felt.
Oh, not even the tiniest bit.
Yeah. Because the Covenants just aren't that cool.
I like
really.
The aesthetics. That's it.
That basically. I mean, there's even the Preach video about meaningful choice that he did. Yeah, I've spent no time with my soulbinds.
None.
And, you know, at least you can soulbind with Pelagos, and you've seen him be pathetic and annoying until the plot finally decides it's time for him to move in his arc. But for me, and my soulbinds as a Night Fae, I spent so little time with him. So here's what I'm going to say. Imagine if, when we're leveling up, we are dealing with Sylvanas' Dark Rangers, Denathrius' agents, the Jailer's dudes. Yeah. And we're actually seeing way more of those characters. The direct influence of them is being felt as we level up. And then as we do our Covenant campaigns, we actually, instead of just doing random chores, I mean, it's funny, like the Kel'Thas stuff in the Venthyr one is cool. KT being back, that stuff's cool. But it's like the first 3 or 4 weeks of the Venthyr one is doing completely just random mind-numbing busy work that no one could possibly give a shit about. Because, you know, you're not going to be like, oh, wow, the Accuser of Revendreth, what a cool in-depth character. They put all their time into random characters like that nobody's really going to care about when their big expansion villains are people we don't know. So imagine if it was a bit more like Wrath of the Lich King, where we were far more directly involved with Sylvanas and her Dark Rangers, Sylvanas and her Valkyr. You know, if maybe Nathanos actually made it across. And, you know, people will know I'm not the biggest fan of Nathanos, but I think this would have been a better storyline if Nathanos came along with us. And, you know, Nathanos, the Dark Rangers, and the remaining Valkyr were actually things we dealt with. Because even if we didn't see a lot of Sylvanas, we would feel her forces and her influence upon us.
Yeah, it's like, allow me to set out like a slightly better version of what this would feel like over time. Like, obviously, Venthyr, in Revendreth, you should have been consistently fighting against what you felt to be Denathrius' work. You should have encountered Ramonia consistently every time you go through.
Yeah.
Or Denathrius himself. Maybe Ramonia would be fine. You know, you see that shit going down. You go over to Ardenweald, and you've got, like, Nathanos stopping you instead of thinking about the Gorm for the whole time, because that's a future setup they'll do, which is the point I might get to later. Constantly setting future stuff up instead of dealing with the now. But yeah, imagine if every time you went to solve a problem, it was a Dark Ranger, or it was Nathanos,
or even Kel'Thuzad.
Yeah, it's
and
like
Kel'Thuzad is our, you know, the jailer's man.
Yeah, it's like in Ardenweald specifically. I'm thinking if Nathanos was there, he would have beef with Tyrande, who would definitely go there with the Night Elves. So he's going to want to interfere with that. That would make a load of sense. You find the Valkyr fiddling about with the Carrion in some capacity or the other, and you find like the Jailer's dudes in Maldraxxus, like KT, stirring up shit during the leveling sprint so everyone feels it instead of being sort of rationed out. It's like all the actual good stuff's like rationed out here and there, and they spend so much time in leveling trying to set up future things or do stuff that we're dealing with right now, like with the Forsworn stuff or the Devo Center crew. And that was actually okay, but the rest of it, like, I keep coming back to Ardenweald. What's the Gorm about? I think if they turn around and go, oh, there's a really deep-rooted reason for the Gorm. Obviously, it's like the Drust stuff as well. Why were you telling me about the Drust when that's not going to matter? If it matters, it's expansion, I think we'll be lucky.
And then, it barely even mattered in the last expansion.
Yeah.
And by the way, I found out Gorak Tull, he was voiced by Christopher Judge.
Nice.
So it's my boy Tilk.
Nice.
Yeah, Stargate.
You mean Kratos? You're young.
Yeah. So a funny thing that has happened is there's now a BBC article. Sandy Row, PSNI attacked with bricks and bottles. So apparently all this is going on as we're recording this live stream, just over there.
Yeah, that is 2 streets that way.
So that's funny. So we spent all this time with Lady Waycrest, the younger Waycrest, and you know she was all fine.
That was
and good.
Yeah, that was
great.
I enjoyed that.
But I say this, I posit this to you.
Yep.
We were experiencing the lore of Kulturas and Zandalar so much that we never got Battle for Azeroth. We actually never got the Alliance Horde bit.
Yeah.
You know, we got it through the proxy of these new things that we had to spend so much time learning about that we never really got that much story going on. Yeah. Whereas, I think about the strengths of, say, the leveling up experience in WoD, where it's like, here's a small cast of characters, you basically know the setup here, let's go and have a story with them.
Yeah, we'll come back to these every patch for a bit, like.
Yeah. So that's that. Wow, we got a big one out of that.
We certainly did.